Hello, I'm Kimberley Dondo, Digital Content Manager, and welcome to the In Conversation With series, a series where I speak to notable figures in the realm of financial services. Listen as they share their personal journeys, thoughts on the industry, and advice for aspiring advisors. Join us at Money Marketing Interactive London on the 29th of September. Just go to mmilondon.moneymarketing.co.uk to secure your seat at our industry-leading event and hear from notable figures in the industry. See you there. Hello and welcome to the Money Marketing Podcast. I'm Kimberley Dondo, and today I'm joined by Tanya Ibberson, who's going to give us a better introduction than I ever could. So go ahead, Tanya.
Oh, good morning, Kimberley. Thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk to you today. So I'm Tanya Ibberson. I call myself the Financial WingWoman.
I love that title.
I use that on social media and also on my website as well. And it sort of stems from really struggling with this question that, introduce yourself. What is it that you do? So in terms of qualifications, I'm an accountant, I'm a financial coach and a business mentor. But that sounds like a real mouthful.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to explain to people what I do, the Financial WingWoman sort of encompasses all of that. I've got experience in financial training, and what I actually like to do is help people to understand more about what they want from their finances and help them to pull out of themselves where they want to go. And then we put a practical plan in place as to how we're going to get them there. So most of my clients they've got their own businesses. So we help them on the accounting side or on the education side, and then on the money mindset side to figure out where things are maybe holding them back, or they've got pieces missing in the puzzle for themselves. So it means I can mold myself to whatever my clients need.
Yeah. So your journey started with you as an accountant. So
Yes.
when did you don't have to give specific years or anything, but how is that process from kind of starting out as an accountant and doing everything that you just explained now?
Okay, yeah. So it's been a long time in the process. I've been doing this for 25 years now.
Wow.
So I skipped the uni route coming out of school, ironically, because I was scared of getting into debt. So my own money limitations were already hard at work when I was back at 18. And so I chose the apprenticeship route, it worked really well for me because it meant I could earn and learn and I could stay at home, which is another thing that I was fearful of on the uni side. And then once I got into the accountancy route, I realised there's just so much more to the profession.
Yeah.
Did I actually just want to be an accountant, or could I do one of these other things within finance? So I moved into financial training, and each of the different switches and changes that I made in my career actually ended up adding another string to my bow, if you like. So I got really used to speaking to rooms full of people, potentially who didn't want to be there. A bit like, teaching a room of kids. Admittedly, these people were adults. Yeah. So everything that I've done, whilst at the time there wasn't really a plan as to if I do this next, it will take me in that direction. It just kind of felt right at the time. So it just helped to really concrete what I enjoyed doing about the work that I did. So I had a go at financial training, but I didn't like that I needed to work weekends, for example. But it actually really helped me work with my clients on the accounting side again to help. Now, how important it is to explain things in their language.
Right.
It's a skill I learned in the classroom and teaching to people of different abilities and at different stages. So each time it's meant that I've added another bit onto the work that I was doing. And now financial coaching is relatively new.
Yeah.
Qualified as a certified financial coach last year. And that's come from understanding more about how much our money mindset affects the business decisions that we can make, and how much it's affected me in my business as well, and how much it's held me back. So, for example, I really struggled having conversations with clients about what my charges were. And when I used to send them invoices, if they took a while to pay, I used to get really uncomfortable picking the phone up to say, can you pay me please? It used to make me feel physically sick because I was having that conversation about money. And then I realised this affects so many people. If I could start to show people how you could change that or understand it's not their fault that they feel that way, maybe we could start to break down some of that taboo, help people to understand they can change how they feel about money. So that's where I sort of come round to where I am now, which is all the Financial WingWoman glory.
Yeah. I find it so interesting because obviously our audience is majority financial advisors, and I've spoken to a couple of financial advisors who are also thinking of also getting their qualification in financial coaching, just because of, I guess, that mentality aspect. You can give advice and tell someone to do something, but I guess if there's something internalized within them, some learned behavior that they picked up from their family or their environment, they might be, regardless of the advice that you give them, you know, this is a good investment, this will work for you and your long-term goals. If they're fearful, you know, they might still be resistant to take that advice. So I think it is a fairly new thing that's happening, but I think it is quite important because I'm starting to realize myself that a lot of financial issues that I might face are down to my mentality and my behavior around money. So when it comes to you and your approach with your clients, how do you figure out what works best for each person? Is it from initial conversations, or what is that?
Yeah, so the starting point is always the conversation, and it's, for me, it's easy to pick up, because when you've got something that is bothering you, or you're not consciously aware that something is holding you back, we still use the same language. We still talk around something, or you say things like, I know I shouldn't do this, but, and it's kind of that whatever people say that they shouldn't do. And it's kind of starting with the language that people use themselves and questioning them in a safe environment and in a logical way. Because what you just said is absolutely right. People go to a financial advisor, they know what they need to do, but it doesn't make sense to them because of how they've been raised, for example. So most of us, we don't get financial education in schools. We're not taught about how to manage money. So the way that we learn is from how mum and dad manage their money, or grandparents or aunts and uncles. So we learn from our environment. So a lot of our learned behaviour is environmental, the culture, the background, and also genetic, generational considerations as well. It's just like that whole expectation of people like us don't make money, or good things don't happen to people like us, and it's kind of a learned thing, and you don't even realize where those things come from half the time. It's just a belief, because most of those beliefs are formed before we're age 7 years. So our brains at that point in our life can't differentiate between a fact or a comment that granddad or mum has made about money is the bane of my existence, or money is the root of all evil, or whatever that comment might be. We hear it and we store it, and we relate that to how situations around money make us feel. Or if money was scarce, for example, growing up, we remember how that felt as a child. We remember going to school in old shoes, or with second-hand clothes, or being picked on because you look different to other children in the class. You remember that feeling. So as you grow older, it's the feeling that we carry. It's that response that our brain triggers when we apparently 21, 25 years of age, and I've made it now, I've got money in my bank, or I've got a credit card, or I can do it, but our body remembers that feeling, and all of a sudden you're 7 years old again, and you don't realize why, because it's not logical, because it's our emotional brain that steers us in that direction. So it's very much about starting a conversation and recognizing the words and the language that people are using, and starting to question, where does that come from? Do you remember when you first heard that? saying, for example, or do you remember who used to talk to you about money in that way? And then digging a little bit deeper and getting really curious. And so it's fascinating because our brains are so clever. They just trying to protect us, but actually it's sabotaging us as adults who we just want to move on with our lives and make money and live our best lives. But we've got that missing piece quite often.
Yeah. I think that is an important point kind of to be made. But when it comes to training as a financial coach, what does the training actually involve? Is it quite like theoretical or psychological? Like what is the process around the training?
Okay, so there's a lot of theory to start with, and I trained with a lady called Catherine Morgan.
Okay.
She's absolutely fantastic in her field, and the program is a 12-month program, and you start off with 3 months of learning.
Okay.
So a lot of theory, a lot of reference material, a lot of books to read, a lot of understanding and reading around the different subject areas. And then 6 months, a big chunk in the middle, is very practical. So it's all very good and well reading up on all the things, which we can all do. We can all pick up a book and teach ourselves, but to put it into practice is something entirely different. So we split into groups of 3, and in our 2-hour sessions, every fortnight, we take it in turns to be the coach, the client, and the observer. So we each have a time where we come up with an example, either that we ourselves have experienced, or we've come across with a client where we perhaps weren't sure how to handle it, or this is the way I handled it, is this the right way? And we talk through or act out the coaching side. So it's learning as you go in actual practice, because you can learn the theory and you can learn the psychology and you can learn all of the way that the brain works and the different parts of the brain, but to be able to apply that when somebody says to you, money runs through my fingers like water, I really struggle to hold on to money. It's very different because everybody's experience and learning and their memories around money are different. So it has to be really practical. So it's taken a long time to get to where I am now, and I'm still learning. I still go into supervision once a fortnight to help others whilst they're learning as well, but also to make sure that we're never the finished article, are we? It's important to sort of keep trying, keep practicing and learning new things as we go. So I'm a huge believer in keeping up with that.
Yeah, you have to consistently keep training because things change all the time. Absolutely. And I do feel like the kind of the shift in moving towards more financial coaching and more holistic forms of like helping clients probably has a lot to do with the increased awareness of mental health, probably.
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
That kind of awareness into how much our brain it controls every aspect of our lives, not just like our physical functions, but it just controls our reactions to so many things, and it can be completely unconscious, and that involves money. And I think it is really important, but I'm sure there are still skeptics out there. I'm sure in our audience is probably definitely skeptics who are just like, financial advice has been this way for however many years. It should stay that way. What would you say to those people who are skeptical about advisors who also want to take up financial coaching to be able to give a more holistic experience for their clients?
I hear you, and I hear that a lot. I've even come across opposition myself in being an accountant and a financial coach, so I completely understand. I think it's important to realise, though, that whilst the fundamentals of the profession stay the same, the people that want to access those services aren't staying the same. Yes. Business is not staying the same. Our whole environment, our culture, our surroundings is not staying the same. And as people, we're becoming more aware and as you say, more understanding and recognizing that mental well-being is so important. Financial well-being is also really, really important. And I think it can be quite easy to fall back on, but I have this textbook, and this textbook teaches me how to do my work, and I'm going to rely on that textbook.
Yeah.
But actually, it's having that belief that things have to stay the way that they've always been that holds us back now. It's the reason people aren't reaching their goals, because they believe they're going to find the answer in a textbook, when actually they have the answers inside themselves if they just choose to want to unlock that and to work with what they know themselves is important, instead of doing what mum or dad wanted or aspired for them to do. It's okay to want something different. It's okay to live differently, to make different choices and still be successful. It's that conflict, I believe, that stops people reaching that. So opening up to different options and choices is what will help people to achieve those goals that generationally we haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
Because we've stuck and we've believed in that textbook, and it's a firm, all the answers are here, I have a qualification and a certificate, and it's done me well so far. So I understand that. But the world is changing, the world we live in, it's changing, technology is changing, we've got access to so much more information now. So we can choose to harness that, or we can choose to stay in a textbook. I guess it's what the client needs ultimately. You can lead them to water, but you can't force them to drink.
Exactly. And going on from that, where do you see kind of financial services as a whole going? How do you see the industry moving forward?
I think with awareness, I think the landscape will have to change. I believe that the education and schooling system will have to catch up, but they won't. We need to talk louder. We need to talk more about this. We need to recognise that taboo isn't something that should be holding our children back. When we're doing them a disservice by not sharing with them and talking openly about money. I mean, I don't know about you, but I remember being about 9 or 10 years old and asking my dad how much money he earned. And I grew up in a northern Lancashire family, and my dad promised me a thick ear. So you think of as a child asking what I felt at the time was a completely open and honest question.
Yeah.
Honest with a whack. That to me, then I learned from that it wasn't safe to ask questions about money. And then all of a sudden you start to turn insular, and you think, okay, I can't ask that question. It's not right to ask that question. But instead, if we open up that channel and we allow that opportunity to talk to our children, then they won't carry with them that it's not okay to talk about money. We can talk about debt, and there's good debt and there's bad debt. We can talk about earning money and saving money and planning for the future. Because at the moment, a lot of people just don't think that far ahead because they don't know that they should or how to do it. And it's not difficult, but the key is to start. So the mindset side has to go with accessible, easy hints and tips. And here's some examples of habits that you could start now, and then 30, 50 years from now, this is what you could have ready for when you're wanting to retire or enjoy later life.
I think
that balance now.
I think we definitely need that balance, with the current climate and people being so concerned about the cost of living crisis and just general, how am I even going to be able to put aside any X amount of money for my future when honestly I don't know what the end of the year will look like. Exactly.
So understanding the basics of budgeting, and that starts with giving children pocket money and letting them choose how they spend it, not trying to control what they choose, or not trying to say to them, maybe you should save some of that. Let them spend it and let them realise they now have to earn more before they can spend more. That's where the basics of those lessons come from, and allowing that open conversation, I think.
Yeah.
And being really careful about your language and trying not to repeat what we heard when we were kids, because it's learnt behaviour. That's how we pass it on.
That is so true. I think with my parents, they allowed me to. I didn't really get like per se like a pocket money, but I would get money here and there, and I'm just it hasn't changed much. I will spend when I have the money. Whereas my sister somehow innately within her was always the one who was able to put aside her money so that she had money when I would be like, oh, I wanted to buy sweets. And she'd be like, well, I can because I saved my money. So I just had to, I had to learn. I think in my teens, I started to learn getting a job and stuff and putting money aside. But that was a longer process for me than my sister, who innately just knew,
Yeah.
I'm going to need this money in a couple of months or something.
Yeah, and that fascinates me in that presumably you got the same lessons from your parents.
Yeah.
You both went off and did your own thing. You learned in your own ways. And as humans, that's exactly what we do. And it's the same in maybe a negative situation or a traumatic situation. Two children in the same situation can learn completely different things from that situation. So there's no cookie cutter approach to this is how you fix that. This is how you remove those blocks, because it's as unique as the lesson that we learned from whatever that situation was. So awareness is where we start, understanding why can't I hold on to my money, or why do I never feel like I'm saving enough money, or whatever it is that we feel. Why do I constantly not spend now because I'm worried about next year or retirement, or because it's not always about not having enough money. Some people really struggle with living today because they're so worried about saving for the future, and they miss out on life right now. There's no reason you can't have a balance, but it's understanding what am I afraid of? What is it that I'm worried might happen, that I'm not going to have the money tomorrow to buy something. So it's like a giant seesaw, like a big set of scales, a balance, and we're all different, because that's the beauty of the human race, isn't it? We're all incredible like we are.
Yeah, definitely. So what would your advice be to someone who is thinking about getting into financial services, whether that be coaching, advice, or being an accountant? What would your advice be?
My advice would be to just start, because I think it's very easy to focus on the questions and focus on, well, that won't work for me because of A, B, and C that I'm thinking about. If it's about taking advice or saving, again, absolutely, just start, no matter how small, because over time, you've got the magic of compounding that helps to grow what you've got sitting there. So just start. And in terms of an accountancy or a financial coaching route, they're very, very different. I would research the ways that you would learn within those different types of career paths, and be really honest with yourself about how you like to learn. So if reading books and taking notes is your thing and the way you learn best, then choose a way that would teach you in that way. If listening to videos or watching or getting involved in a conversation like a workshop or a tutorial is your thing, then look for a way that teaches you, that is best suited for you. When I first started the financial coaching, we all did a questionnaire to ask us how we best learned. And the way that was taught, it was all different ways. So you could go, here's a book list, go and read these books. You could be, these are the dates that we're all getting together to discuss these topics. If you want to learn that way, then come to these classes. So it helped to give the option. You understanding how you learn. And I think it's a great self-awareness tool to know that just because you learn differently from someone else doesn't mean that you're second rate or that you're going to find it so much harder than someone else. It's you just learn differently, because we all learn differently. And it's the same to an approach for saving money, planning for the future. We all do it in different ways, but you have to start.
Yeah, that's great advice that you can probably use in any aspect of your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Tanya. That was such a great conversation. Thank you for speaking with me today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
thank you for listening to In Conversation With. We do hope that you enjoyed it. Please do keep up to date with all our new releases via Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere else you get your podcasts from. You can also keep up to date with all our new content published on the Money Marketing website, as well as our print edition Money Marketing magazine. So make sure to subscribe. Follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. See you next time.